We call upon all stakeholders to participate and contribute policy proposals for NDS2 currently being crafted. Ladies and gentlemen, I urge the private sector to actively partner with government in wealth creation by leveraging recent investments in infrastructure, such as roads, renewable energy projects, and the expansion of health and education facilities. These developments are designed to unlock new opportunities for growth and innovation. In line with our commitment to foster a more enabling business climate, government is undertaking a comprehensive exercise to reduce the cost of doing business and enhance competitiveness. Ladies and gentlemen, we acknowledge the transformative potential of the African Continental Free Trade Area, AfCFTA, which offers us a gateway to the entire African market of over 1.4 billion people, with a combined nominal GDP of about $3.4 trillion US. Leveraging this platform, we unlock unprecedented opportunities for Zimbabwe industries to export and compete globally. In this notable pursuit, partnerships remain vital. I call upon development partners, captains of the industry, academia, civil society, and all stakeholders to collaborate in design and implementation of policies that foster innovation, competitiveness, and economic diversification. The change will be quite fundamental in terms of reducing the cost of doing business in order to create the right base for us to launch into NDS2. At the same time, government remains focused on guaranteeing macroeconomic stability as the foundation for sustained inclusive growth and national development. Ladies and gentlemen, as we deliberate over the course of this conference, let us be guided by the spirit of a shared destiny, shared growth and shared wealth creation, premised on enterprise, technology, particularly AI development, and innovation. The future of the country depends much on our collective wisdom and commitment to pursuing the policies that guarantee broad-based economic empowerment and social upliftment. With these remarks, it is now my distinct pleasure to officially open ZEDCON 2025.
Role in the economy. Our primary focus is to re-establish that dominance of the manufacturing industry, both from the agro-processing side as well as the manufacturing in general, where you have your iron and steel kicking in, you have your other value chains, and now we have even the cement industry coming in. We believe it's possible to have the manufacturing sector rising back to contributing 20% and above to our GDP, as we did in the first 2 decades of our independence. And from the rebased statistics from our economic census, it's not far history. When I checked around 2019, the manufacturing sector's contribution was in the region of 19%. So when I sat down, he said, Minister, just know you are next. It's up for discussion. Allow me to recognize the Minister of State for Provincial Affairs and Devolution, Mama Honorable Judith Ngube. It looks like it's a Ngube affair. The Minister of Finance, Prof. Ngube. I haven't checked if there are any deputy ministers or other colleague ministers who are here. PS Romatana, PS Nyoni, of hitting the call by industry that this is where we seem to be struggling. I remember at one time I spoke to General Beltins, who were highlighting that we make it easy for the mining companies to import conveyor belts when we have a company that has capacity to supply, if not all, the majority of the requirements. And I have told my team that we cannot issue import licenses for that, except if we get confirmation from this company that they are not able to supply that, or in the extreme that the industry, the mining industry itself, feels there is a need to import. And 0.3% is the manufacturing sector's contribution. I always say the story needs to be completed. I know I shouldn't be saying this, but the reality is that the contribution over the last 3 years or so for the manufacturing sector in comparison has been coming down. And we've been seeing strong performance, very strong performance from the mining sector, who, if the projections that I saw from the data that I've been looking at, if the projections go the way they are, by end of the year or by the first quarter next year, the mining sector might have reached 15.5% of GDP. Again, it is expected, in my view, that these primary sectors should lead in their growth, the mining sector and the agricultural sector. And it is now the work of the captains of industry to see how we tap into that growth to then have the manufacturing sector come through. That's why, if you have been following of late, there's been investment in agro, value addition. We have seen your Nestle's, you have seen your National Foods. Now, value adding, because there is surplus feed production, they have invested into the downstream industries. We are in a conversation with the Minister of Mines. Our view is that we need to domesticate the value chain as much as possible, and this is how the manufacturing sector will be able to tap into the growing mining industry. Not only should we focus on beneficiating the minerals, but all the consumables in that sector as much as possible should be domesticated, and that is the role the manufacturing sector ought to play. The NGS2 that is coming, our view is that for the manufacturing sector to fully contribute towards attaining Vision 2030, we have to be unapologetic in focusing on agro-processing and value addition. As I've highlighted, the growth of the agricultural sector should spur the growth in the manufacturing sector. Again, we are a very small economy. We have a problem that because we are a US dollar economy, most of our colleagues in industry do not realize the importance. We have become a market for Zambia. It is good to trade with neighbors here in Nicola. But we have become a market because our economy is doing so well. The construction sector is booming, but the manufacturing sector has lagged behind in being able to provide or to support this growing economy. And I'm maybe going to highlight, colleagues, this morning that my projection is that by May next year, this country will be exporting cement, and the price of cement will be competitive in the region. But it's a very big intervention for our economy. There is another one again. It was in the headlines for the reasons that were not very good. Again, we have moved to polish some of those in Magunje, in Mashonaland West Province, again, I think. So Mashonaland West Province, if there is a slide that is looking at investments in the manufacturing sector, you would find that just this year, our estimation is that they will be receiving in excess of $1 billion in there. From the first citizen of this country, His Excellency President Dr. Ikrim Nangagwa. After we had ZEDCON launched the Industrial Reconstruction and Growth Plan, we convened here, colleagues will remember, a competitiveness summit, the first in this country, again where the President clearly articulated that we have to decisively deal with these issues. In opening cabinet in February this year, he was again very clear that these issues have to be addressed. If ever there's been a time that the President gives instructions and his foot soldiers implement, I think 2025 should sit out in history. Thank you very much.
To allow the Honourable Ministers of Industry and Commerce, as well as the Minister of Finance, Economic Development and Investment Promotion, to sign a mandate agreement actually on the appointment of the National Venture Capital Company of Zimbabwe to manage the Industrial Development Fund from the Ministry of Industry and Commerce. So the Industrial Development Fund is a fund that we set up where Treasury funds the IDC or the Industrial Development Corporation. So we were actually managing it through Mutapa, but the Minister and I then agreed that we cannot be giving money to Mutapa. In fact, Mutapa is supposed to give us money. We give it to National Venture Capital Company of Zimbabwe to support industry. So this is the MOU which my two honourable ministers are now going to sign.